Albus Dumbledore is the puppeteer, pulling the strings behind the scenes of Harry's life and others. But was there a plan? And did he ever actually care about Harry? Or was he just playing chess master with his life for the greater good? Today we're going to pick apart Dumbledore's plan and see how it evolves as the series and his relationship with Harry develops.
The Belated Binge Podcast.
I believe that in each book of the Harry Potter series, Dumbledore has an agenda and a goal for training Harry as the ultimate chess piece to kill Voldemort. That plan goes through 4 basic stages. You've got your asset mode, your activate mode, your protection mode, and your attack mode. And so if we look through each book in the series, 1 through 7, there's an obvious timeline because, you're counting 1 through 7, and those are years in his life. I digress. We start in book 1, where Albus Dumbledore is totally in asset collection mode. He has long since took it upon himself to be the one to fight and destroy Voldemort. He already knows that Voldemort is still alive, and he suspects that a Horcrux could be involved, which I'll dive into in another video. So he knows he needs to protect Harry as his asset, the boy from the prophecy that Voldemort marked as his equal. And once his asset comes to school, it turns to work. What am I working with? What skills does Harry have that I can utilize? He drops some hints and puts Harry in some positions to work out the mystery of the stone, Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone. I don't know where you live. The obstacle course at the end of the book was set up to test Harry. Different tasks testing different skills. He learns that Harry is curious and he's willing to step outside the rules for his own moral compass or code, and that Harry is also incredibly brave and he does well under pressure. But what he didn't plan for was that not only did he get Harry, the king for his chessboard, he also got Hermione, the queen, and Ron, the knight, as well. So then we get into book 2. He's still in asset collection mode at this point with Harry. Parseltongue? That's new. Harry could potentially have that gift on his own, but what's more likely? Some kind of transfer of power? Maybe there's a connection between him and Voldemort? Some pieces behind that scar on his forehead are starting to kind of fall into place in Dumbledore's mind. And then the ending happens, obviously. And this is where things in the plan start to shift a little bit, right? He's gone from carrying this baby, well, not out, Hagrid carried him out, but essentially taking this baby from a demolished house who had just been orphaned. A serial killer was trying to kill him, and kaput, we know the story, we know how it goes, but all Dumbledore was able to see at that point was just this baby is the key to everything. I need to protect it. Hence the blood magic charm over Privet Drive, hence not stepping in when the Dursleys are abusing Harry the first 11 years of his life, because it's all about protection, protecting that asset. Book 2 starts much the same way until we get to the end. And this is where Harry continues to show that bravery, right? Continues to show that he's willing to put himself in harm's way to save others. That's why he goes into the chamber to save Ginny in the first place. Here's the thing. While Harry is in the chamber, he shows Dumbledore that loyalty. The loyalty that calls Fawkes to him. And after that, he frees Dobby. Dumbledore learns that Harry is completely selfless and loyal. And this is when Dumbledore starts care about Harry as a person. And the plan starts to shift a little bit. He knows that there's some kind of connection that could be weaponized at some point. He's also now got proof that Voldemort has Horcruxes, and he knows more than one. And he's suspecting Harry could be one of them. That's a lot to take in for just the second book of the series for our puppet master behind the scenes. But this is what's going on off the page. This is what's going on in the back of his mind. And this is what kind of changes the trajectory of the plan just a tad. Because in book 3, activation begins. And he puts Harry in the position to draw some connections to his parents. By putting Lupin in place that year, that's no accident. And by the time it's over, he sets him and Hermione on a time turner mission to save a wrongfully imprisoned man who happens to be Harry's godfather. How long did he know that that's what was going to happen? If you remember, during the Buckbeak execution moment, he was deliberately stalling and setting up the time turner ex- excursion, I guess you could say, before he had actually sent Harry and Hermione back in time in the first place. Even still, Harry, amongst all of this, has the opportunity to take out Peter Pettigrew after he finds out that he's really the person who is responsible for his parents getting killed by Lord Voldemort, and he doesn't do it. And he doesn't let his dad's friends do it because Harry is just. And Harry's Patronus lets him know that among all of these hero characteristics that he's shown throughout these first 3 books, the bravery, the courage, the selflessness, and this new wrinkle of wanting to do the right thing with Peter Pettigrew and not just kill him, he's also no slouch with a wand, despite how many jokes I've personally made about him only knowing 2 spells, which is, I guess, good for Ginny's sake. We're getting off track here, but this is Dumbledore still training Harry, but throughout this book also trying to build connections and give him family. Family that's not abusing him. He still has to go back there for the protection, but this is a bit of a lifeline because he's starting to care more about Harry's feelings during the preparation than he ever has before. So now we've reached book 4, and we are in activation and training mode. This isn't flying keys anymore. Real dark arts and real dangerous things are going to happen in the Triwizard Tournament. And I think that Dumbledore suspects that somehow Harry's going to find his way into it. Even if he wasn't planning on Harry entering, once that piece was in play, it became about training and can Harry handle this? How do I, as Dumbledore, make sure that Harry is in a position to be able to learn the things that he's going to need to learn as he goes towards his mission towards Voldemort? Because it's clear that Voldemort is now on offense. Because who else would manipulate the contest in a way that Harry would get in? And we need to play defense, and Harry still needs to develop the skills that he needs to defeat Voldemort at some point in time. But he's also got to survive. And ideally, survive taking out Voldemort. Because at this point is when I think that Dumbledore has figured out the Horcrux situation. At least that Harry is one. We know that he doesn't learn how many there are until book 6, but he knows that there's multiple Horcruxes at this point, and he suspects that Harry is one of them, and that he's realizing that in order for Voldemort to actually die, Harry does too. So he kind of starts off with, how do we make the most out of this death? How do we get the most out of Harry for the greater good before he has to be sacrificed on this mission that he has to be sacrificed for? There's literally no other way. And then it happens. Voldemort comes back. He has a body. Harry recounts what happened in the graveyard. R.I.P. Cedric Diggory. Although, Joe, that wasn't ever going to work. See my last video about who Harry should have been with if it wasn't going to be Ginny. This is that moment. This is that turning point in the plan for Dumbledore where it makes like its kind of final, I don't want to say final evolution, but the intention behind it has its final thing that clicks into place. Because when Harry tells Dumbledore that Voldemort used his own blood to come back, we have the gleam of triumph. And that gleam of triumph is Dumbledore realizing that there could be a way for Harry to not only fulfill this mission, be sacrificed to kill Voldemort, but survive it. He had to already be thinking it, because there'd be no gleam of triumph if he wasn't already putting those pieces together. If he wasn't already trying to think, how in the world is it possible for Harry to survive? Now he has that. And that's when protection mode for Harry kind of gets introduced into Dumbledore's intentions behind his plan, and that's when Order of the Phoenix happens, book 5. And this is all protection via neglect, which is an interesting cocktail. But in Dumbledore's mind, he can protect Harry by not interacting with him personally. Less temptation for Voldemort, but also showing less of his hand to Voldemort. Besides, at this point, he does care about Harry. He cares about Harry's happiness, but he's counting on Hermione and Ron to do that, and his, bonus chess pieces that he has, along with Sirius, that has now been reconnected with his godson, who is safely at the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix and can correspond with him regularly. He's relying on others to do the personal things and tend to Harry's happiness while he works on the offense against Voldemort. And how do we make it so that Harry actually gets through this thing alive? And that's when things get bad with the dreams, and that mind connection is being weaponized. And Dumbledore tries to arrange for Harry to protect himself and fight back against it via those occlumency lessons. However, he trusted Snape to be an adult about it, and that math he got very, very wrong. And Harry didn't do himself a lot of favors there, but I'm still adult, child, whatever. We can have that debate another time for another video. At this point, I don't think that Dumbledore realizes quite how much he actually cares about Harry personally, though. It's not until he himself feels the hurt and the loss through Harry's experience losing Sirius that I think he actually develops kind of the personal feelings that he's been, I think, probably trying to protect himself against throughout Harry's life, because up until very, very recently, he thought that this was his sacrificial lamb, right? Like, don't get too attached because then you won't be able to let it go. But now, not only is he trying to figure out how to make this kid live through it, he's experienced a lot of things through Harry and feels for Harry. And then the serious thing happens, and he's like, oh, gut wrench. I didn't expect to feel this way and react in this manner to what Harry's feeling. And this is where he intends to let the mentoring of the protege begin on a more personal level, that one-on-one training and relationship. And he realizes, I think, that he's kind of the last father figure standing. And as bad as it was getting there, he at least thinks that Voldemort is not going to try to enter Harry's head now. And it's going to be safe to start letting Harry in on the attack plan. And that's exactly what book 6 is all about. The attack plan is activated, but the wrinkle is the curse from the ring. Now we're in a hurry that Dumbledore didn't count on. Dumbledore didn't count on being killed like right now before Harry got out of school. I'm sure that the plan was to be working alongside Harry long past his graduation when he's whatever an Auror, and like this was gonna be a long play. He didn't think he was gonna die before Harry graduates. So now everything has to be sped up, and he needs Harry to be able to do this without him. And that means understanding the opponent and being able to do some detective work because these Horcruxes aren't going to just land in his lap like every other thing that's ever happened in Harry's life. But he didn't get to tell him everything that he planned on because Draco. He intended to have more meetings with Harry, but Harry's delay in his piece of their collaboration in getting the memory from Slughorn was sidetracked by his obsession with Draco's mission. And Dumbledore didn't intend to die the night that they went to the cave. Think about it. This would be the plan, right? This is the logical thing. The plan would have been retrieve said Horcrux, bring it back to his office, teach Harry the dangers and practical application of what a Horcrux can do and how do you defeat it and kill it. Perhaps this would be the time that he explained the hand, or was it this hand? Which hand was it? Left, right, whatever. It doesn't matter. But of course, Draco ruined everything. And this whole time, he's also been continuing on the how does Harry survive plan. That's been happening in the back of his mind, in the background, that we don't see as readers because we don't know that Harry's going to survive. Well, we don't even know that he's going to die at this point, but Dumbledore does. And I think that's when he decided to include the Deathly Hallows piece of our whole story into the equation in helping Harry survive and come back. He's made arrangements before his death for Harry to have two of the three Hallows in his possession when he dies. And I know that the plan on the page was to have Snape become the Master of the Elder Wand, but I'm not totally convinced that that was the end of the plan. He would know that Harry would go after Snape when he killed Dumbledore, like he planned. Snape, obviously, wouldn't kill Harry, and I'm not so sure that Dumbledore didn't figure Harry would use his favorite spell and Expelliarmus that thing and be 3 for 3. For my money, it's that combination, being both the master of death, all three Deathly Hallows, and Lily's blood in Voldemort, and that sacrifice that Harry made. That is not only how he survived the killing curse from Voldemort, but how he could come back. And I think that's probably not all 100% supported by canon, but that's how it makes the most sense in my head. If he wasn't both Master of Death and had that blood protection, he might be able to survive the killing curse, but could he make the choice to come back in his own body and finish the job? I'm not so sure that he could if he wasn't both. But I think that that went into Dumbledore's plan. Layers, and maybe even contingency. And then we hit book 7, obviously. That's it. We've got the final attack plan, and it all boils down to the backup plan. The ultimate attempt and hope that everything Harry has learned, plus the additional measures that he's put in place with the Hallows clues and the Sword of Gryffindor, trying to leave it in his will, and also having the then next plan of having Snape hide it somewhere where Harry could rightfully get it. Not to mention, Snape obviously helping from the inside. He's hoping that whole thing, that combination, that just big cluster of this isn't how I intended this to go, but hopefully it'll work out is going to be enough. Because Harry has a foundation. He doesn't have all the pieces that Dumbledore intended to share with him to make up the middle, but he's got the beginning and kind of the end figured out, and hopefully Harry can fill in. And he's got the arrangements in place. So now the protege just has to be successful in following the hero journey and kind of filling in the rest for himself. He has to murder a serial killer and live through it. And of course, it works. Not totally on plan and kind of messy, but it works. Let me know in the comments what you think of Dumbledore as a character. Did he care about Harry? Or was he just an asset in his quest to take down Voldemort for the greater good? Subscribe, let me know if I should keep making these videos, and if you're listening on a podcast feed, leave me a review, let me know how I'm doing.